So what is data types? What are the, what do you mean by data types? First of all, we will take a look at the data types now. And what are the data types? What do you mean by data types, first of all? So before we understand the data types, okay, let us understand certain basic things, okay? So data type is nothing but the type of the data that a variable can store, the type of data that a variable can store. For example, I have a variable called quantity. I have a variable called quantity. So quantity is what data type? So what data type it should be? The quantity. It's supposed to be, yes, Pavitra. The quantity is supposed to be a number data type. Okay, numeric variable. And again, the quantity is a whole number. It is not a decimal number in most of the cases. Okay, it is a numeric variable. Okay, and also it is a whole number. Hence, we need to use the integer data type for this variable, right? So I have a variable called quantity. I need to assign a data type. Which data type? It's a numeric data type. But again, within the numeric, there are different types of that, integer and decimal. Since the quantity is the whole number, we assign the integer data type to this. Okay, in the case of SQL Server, for the integer data type, we need to define it as int. Okay, let's take another example. Let's say I have a variable called salary. I have a variable called salary. It is also a numeric variable, but it is a decimal number. It cannot be a whole number. Okay, because it involves the decimal part, right? To define the decimal data type in SQL Server, you need to use this keyword decimal. Okay, for example, if you specify the width of the salary column, for example, this is my salary column, and the decimal data type you defined it. This is a salary variable or the column. The data type is decimal, and inside the parenthesis, if I specify 8,2, the first value 8, what it says is you can enter only the 8-digit numbers. And then the 2 here, it says of the 8-digit numbers, 2 digits are reserved to hold the decimal values. For example, you have something called 2, 3, 5, 1, 0, 0, 2, 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. And of these 8 digits, 2 digits are reserved for the decimal part. This is how you need to, this is how it stores. Okay. So here, like other RDBMS, we have numeric data types, string data type, date and time data types, and binary data types are available. 1 second, let me just. But when it comes to SQL Server, lot of data types are available here. Okay, so the one is at a high level. At a high level, if you take a look at the numeric data type, within the numeric, there are different types are available. Okay, at a high level, if you see here, in the numeric data type itself, we have something called integer data type. Sorry, the integer data type and then the decimal data type. At a high level, there are two categories are there under numeric data type. In integer data type, we have something called big int, small int, tiny int, bit. Okay, so this is how they came up with different data types. Okay, for you can choose whichever data types you need. See, blindly, if you assign it a int, right, that is not helpful. Rather, what Microsoft says is, right, for example, to store the number of children in a family. Okay, in that case, you can use tiny int. That is enough. You don't have to use the integer type. Okay, instead, you can use tiny int, because no family can have more than 255 children, right? 55. But if you want to store the number of stories, number of stories of a building. Okay, a building can have more than 255 stories also, right? 255 floors may be there. So in that case, tiny int may not be sufficient. You need to use some other data type. Okay, different data types you need to use it. But in the case of SQL Server, it converts the integer constant greater than, this some value. For example, if you have something like 2000, this is the one I remember it. I don't know, 483. I don't 647 483. If you store any value beyond this in the integer data type, it will convert this to decimal data type. Okay. And it is not going to convert this as a big int. Instead, it converts as a decimal data type. Okay. And also we have money. If you see the decimal, we have money data type. Okay. The money data types are special data types. It represent monetary or currency values. Okay. The SQL servers, it comes with two variants of the money data type. Within the money also, you have something called small money, and the other one is money. Okay. So within this category, there are two different types of money is available. And so the money and small money data types are accurate to 10,000th of the monetary units which they represent. Okay. And I'm not going to talk in depth about this because this itself requires one session. If you know these commonly used data types, that is more than sufficient at this moment. And again, defining the data type and creating a table, everything is the responsibility of the database administrator. However, it is the responsibility, even the developer also have the equal responsibility to tell which column, needs to be defined with which data type. Okay. But end of the day, they will decide by understanding the requirement. Okay. For example, tiny int for a number of children in a family, for that column, it will not require more than 3 digits at any cost to store it there, right? So in that case, a tiny int is more than sufficient. That call will be taken by the database administrator. We don't have to worry about that. Okay. So these are the data types. Okay, the number, we have something called integer data type, and you can store the values anywhere between these two for the integer data type. Like I mentioned earlier, if anything above this, it will convert this a decimal data. If you try to store a value in your integer data type, beyond this range, it will convert as a decimal number. Not even it will store this, consider this a big int. Okay, it will be converted as a decimal. The next one is the bit data type 0 or 1. So what is a 0 or 1? For example, I have a column called sex. So here 0 represents female, 1 represents the male. And in this column, either you should have 0 or 1, right? That's it. It should not be, something else. Hence, in that case, you can go for bit data type. Okay. And the other one is the decimal data type. You can store the values anywhere between these two ranges. And the date time, you can store the values anywhere between this range. And then we have something called char and varchar data type. And you can both of them. You can in both of the cases, you can store the maximum length of 8,000 character. But here it's a fixed length, whereas as the name suggests here, it is a varchar, variable character. The difference here is, for example, you have defined the first name. You have defined a person's first name as, you have a column by the name of first name. And then you have used the F name, okay, and char of, let's say 30, okay. And whereas the same thing, when you use it, the varchar data type, 30, what will happen is, for example, a person name is Babu. How many characters are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. But what will happen is, if you use char data type, it's a fixed length. Whether you store 4 letters or you store 30 letters, okay. It even to store the 4 letters, it still reserves the 30, the length, right? It reserves the length for this char column Babu, sorry, the first name 30, okay. So in that case, unnecessarily, if you deduct 4 from the 30 to 26 cells will be, blank. Okay, it will consume memory. Okay, whereas in the case of varchar, even if it's the same name, right? Even if you store just 4 letters in the 30 length, it uses only the 4, it allocates only the 4 cells in the memory. It is not going to blindly keep the 30 cells for each and every person name irrespective of the length. Okay. If the person first name is, requires to store a specific person's first name. Let's the first name is 30 character. In that case, it will utilize everything here. Okay. It will get stored fully there. But the case is like this one. Your first name is less than the 30. In that case, even though if it is less than 30, it'll it'll allocate 30 cells. You just think that way. Okay. But it occupies only 4, but remaining 26 cells will be kept blank. It will be reserved in the memory. Okay. That cannot be used for other applications also. Okay. Or other columns. But whereas in the case of varchar, if the column length is the value is whatever you store it, right? If it is less than 30, like Babu, so it will not allocate 30 cells. Okay. Instead, it will allocate only the 4 cells. So since it is a varchar, it is dynamically allocates the sizes, even though you specify 30 or 50. Okay. If the value is smaller than the width that you specified, it automatically stores only that much space. Okay. It utilizes only that much space. Binary, next to the binary, the maximum length of binary is 8,000 bytes. For example, you want to store image or something like that. In that case, you can use the binary data type. Fine. And there are built-in functions that are available in the case of SQL Server as part of, this one, right? 1 second. As part of the SQL Server, different built-in functions are available. The ABS, absolute, round, ceiling, floor, count, min, max, sum, exponentiation, power, is numeric, something like that. Okay. These are the different data types. Sorry, the built-in functions are available. For example, if I want to use the min function, let's work with the simple function first. Okay, just give me a second. 1 second. I will just. One second, I think. Let me go. I just connect to the SSMS. You all know how to connect to SSMS. I'll just show you one more time. By the time, so when you open the SQL Server Management System, first time when you launch it, it will ask you, it will prompt for you like this. Okay. You simply click on connect. You don't have to make any changes. It automatically picks up the values for each and every thing here. Okay. And click on connect. Now you will get connected to the SQL Server. Good. In case of any error, you need to fix it. Okay. There is some problem with your installation or something like that. Or you forgot the server name, everything. Okay. Now we got connected to this one. And on the left side, you can see the databases. You can click on the plus sign next to the databases. It'll get expanded. Here you can see the databases that I created previously. You can see it here. And how do I create the databases? We discussed earlier. Anyhow, I will just show you how to create the database. Keep the cursor on top of the databases. So right click on it. You will find the new database. Click on this. Here I am going to say something like demo database 2. Press enter. You just type the name of the database and press enter. That's it. You're all set. It will get created. It will create the data types. Okay. Sorry, it will get create the database. Okay, not the data types. Okay. And we will see now how to use these built-in functions. Okay, we will start with the EBS apps. Okay. And what I will do is I'll just connect to my demo database. The same way I created this database also, but here I already created the tables, which we will see a little later how to create the data table, everything. And here, since I already have the tables, we can use this one. With this, I will show you the built-in functions, how we can use the built-in functions. And there are certain functions you don't have to use the table. Okay. And for example, now we need to write the SQL query. First time you will not find the query pane like this on the right side. Okay. You need to click on the new query in your case to write SQL queries. Okay. New query. Can you all see it here? New query. This is the one you need to click on it to open a query pad. Okay. This is where you write your SQL queries. To start with, what I will do is I'll just select ABS of 2.34 as is the reserved word alias. Okay. And here I just give some kind of absolute value. And in this case, I just use a negative value here. And school time we have studied using the absolute. By taking an absolute on a negative value, it will convert as a positive value. Look here, that is what abs value, the abs function is does. Okay. This is how it works. The abs. If you want to convert the negative into positive value, then you need to use abs. Okay. And we have something else called the min function, max function. For example, I just say select star from employee table. Yeah, employee table. And I'm going to press F5. This one. See, I have written a SQL query. Now, how do I execute the query? You can press F5 to execute this. The shortcut key, keyboard shortcut key is F5. Or you can click on the execute button here. Okay, if you click on the execute button by selecting the query, you need to select the query. Okay, if you want to execute this query, you need to select this one and then click on execute. Or if if you click on somewhere here, right, and then if you execute it, what will happen is, okay, 1 second. If you keep somewhere else and if you click on execute, it is going to execute all the SQL queries in this window. Look here, the absolute. I just clicked on somewhere in the empty place, and then I clicked on execute. All the SQL statements will get executed. Okay, in that case. But if I want to execute only the specific query, select those query and then click on execute. And if you see in this case, since I clicked on the empty space and when I clicked on the execute, both the queries got executed. That you can see it here. For this query, the output is here. For this query, the output is this one. That's it. Okay. So now you understood where to write the SQL query and how to execute the SQL query. Either you can use the keyboard shortcut key F5 or click on the execute. Okay. First of all, you need to click on the new query to open your SQL queries. Okay. And then you need to you can write. But in the case of, for example, when I select the table name here on the left side, right click on it. And if you click on select top 1000 rows, this one will open up a window separately. Okay. In that case, you don't have to explicitly select new query. Okay. Simply click on it. It will open a new query. Okay. New window. Okay. Fine. This is a basic thing you should be knowing it. Okay. And for example, I want to find out in this table, I have Sal, something like that is there. And I'm going to use the select star from employee query, same query. Here, I just want to display the salary. For example, I want to find out the minimum salary, min function. There is something called min function. And there is something else called max function, max of sale. Always, it is a best practice to use the uppercase for the reserved words. Max is a reserved word, built-in function. So here salary, and you have something like average of salary, and then minimum, maximum, average, and sum of salary. Okay, that's it. And then select all these things and then press F5. I'm going to press F5. Look here, in the single SQL query, you learned about 4 built-in functions, four numeric built-in functions. The minimum will give the minimum salary drawn by the employee in your data set, and maximum salary, minimum salary, maximum salary, average salary, and sum of salary. Okay. And okay, so next one is just give me a second, I'm getting a call. Next one is the floor and ceiling. Okay, floor and ceiling. What is floor and ceiling? So in the case of SQL Server, these two functions are used to round numbers. The floor and ceiling functions we use to round the numbers, but they differ in the way how it does the rounding. Okay. In the case of floor, I just write it here. How do I specify comments here in the SQL SSMS? You need to use double hyphen. Okay, followed by the double hyphen. Whatever you type it, that will not get executed by your SQL Server engine. Whenever it encounters the double hyphen, it understands, okay, this is a comment that is meant for the developer's understanding. It does not execute this line. It will simply ignore this line. Okay. So here I just write, it is always a best practice to include comments wherever it is required in your code. Make sure that you are specifying the comments in your code so that later point in time, if you want to understand the logic that you've used it will be very much helpful. You can refer it back. The floor function, what it does is it rounds a number down to the nearest integer or the specified decimal value. It always returns the largest integer. Okay, it always returns the largest integer, which is less than or equal to the input value. So the same thing here. In the case of ceiling also, it rounds a number up to the nearest integer. Okay, up to the nearest integer or a specified decimal value, decimal place. It always returns the smallest integer that is greater than or equal to the input value. Okay, I'll just give you some example here. For example, I'm going to use something like select floor. See, in our house, we have, let's say you are sitting in your house. In your house, you have floor and ceiling, right? Something you just relate that with this one. I'm going to use a reserved word. Okay, floor, comma 5.2 and okay, and I just simply execute this. I have a value, like 5.2, and I'm going to use the floor function for the 5.2. Let us see what happens. Execute. So in this case, it's it rounded down this value to the nearest integer. Okay, it rounds down to 5. Okay, since it is the largest integer, which is less than or equal to 5.2. Okay, less than 5.2. The nearest integer to the less than 5.2 is 5 only, right? Okay, and the largest integer less than or equal to 5.2 is 5, hence it is returning 5 only. But if you notice here, no column name. It doesn't make any sense, right? If you say 5, what is 5? You need to give some column name. Here we are not using any table. So in that case, what we can do is we use the as reserved word and we give some alias, some column name. Here what I do is I just say floor value, something like that. And if I execute this, fine. So look here, the column name is floor value. And next one is similarly, I'm going to use the ceiling function. Instead of this, I'm going to use the ceiling function. I'm going to specify ceiling value. Ceiling value, it gives me 6. This time it gives me 6. So what I do is at the end of each SQL statement, I just use go. And if I select these two statements and execute it, I can see in the results window, two queries output side by side, right? In the first query's output 5 and second query's output is 6. The first one, the floor function, it rounds down to 5 because it is the largest integer that is less than or equal to 5.2. Okay. And whereas in the case of ceiling, it rounds up to 6 in this case because it is the smallest integer greater than or equal to 5.2. Okay. So that is how it works. So in summary, the floor always rounds down while ceiling always rounds up. This is rounds down to the largest integer less than or equal to 5.2, where this one rounds up, rounds down and rounds up. The floor is rounding down, the ceiling is, the rounding up. Okay, then the next highest integer value is 6, right? It'll give me that one. In this case, it will see the, it rounds down to this one. It will simply ignore the decimal value and then it gives me this value. You just think that way. Okay. In this case, it will, it will take the next highest integer value. Okay. For this next highest integer value is 6, ceiling. Okay. And supposing you use 5.5 in this case, also it gives me the floor value is something like rounding down, the ceiling value is rounding up. You just think that there's a shortcut way of remembering it. Okay. And the next one is the minimum, maximum, sum, we have seen it. And then we will see the power and EXP also. And you have all again, so we have something like the round function. Okay. You might be knowing that the round function, right? Round, we used it in school time, right? What is round function? It rounds the value, okay, based on the decimal values that you specify, right? Based on which it rounds the values, the round function. For example, you have something like, okay, now we are going to see the round function. In this case, select, for example, select 3.1418. If I want to round this down to 2, okay, a rounded value. You just select this, press F5, incorrect syntax, and here, sorry, you did not mention round here. Okay, round function. So in this case, it rounded to the this one 3.14, right? It gives me it rounds the number to 2 decimal places. It rounds the number to 2 decimal places. So in this case, it keeps only the 1,4 and rest of them it make it 0,0. So 0 has no meaning, hence it is 3.14 only. Okay. So the round function takes 2 arguments. The first one is the number to be rounded and the number of decimal places that needs to be rounded to. Okay, round to. If the number of decimal places is positive, this function rounds the specified number of decimal places. Okay. If it is a negative, the function rounds to the left of the decimal point. Left of the decimal point. So for example, if I say, I just take this one. Sorry. Instead of positive value here, I'm going to specify -2. So in this case, what is happening here? If I specify instead of positive value in the decimal places, if I specify the negative value, what is going to happen? The function rounds to the left of the decimal point. Left of the decimal point is 3, right? Okay, I just select this one and then click on execute. 0. It tries to, since you mentioned negative row, it tries to round to the value to the minus, so to the left of the, you want. For example, if you say 233, and then if I specify F5, 200. Okay. And so the left of the decimal is the this is your decimal part. The left side of this one is this one, right? It rounds down left of the decimal value. Okay, in this case 233. Since I mentioned -2, it rounds the left side of the decimal, which is 233. So in this case, since I mentioned -2, it rounds these values, right? So 2 and then 00. Okay, it is actually 200, 200. Okay, or 200. Okay, instead of 233, it rounds down to 200. For example, if I specify 253, if I press 300, so we know anything above 5, it will get converted to the next nearest integer, right? That is what we studied during school time. If you specify anything 5 and above, what happens is, since in this case I've used a negative value, it rounds to the left of the value, left of your decimal value. In this case, since I mentioned -2 and 2 followed by 5 is there, hence what it does is it converts to 250. Okay, it converts to the next highest integer 300. But if I have the value which is less than 5, it rounds down. It rounds down the next since okay, first of all, let me know 233, right? We are talking about this one. In this case, it rounds down to the next lowest integer value. It rounds down if the value is less than 5, right? If anything 5, and if anything is 5 and above, it rounds up. Okay. Gap to the left of the decimal values. Left of the decimal point. Okay. It rounds the number to the nearest 100. We can, it rounds up to the left of the decimal values. In the below example, it rounds the number to the nearest 100. So in this case, the next nearest 100 is basically it does the round up. It is rounding down here. In this case, okay. Since the values are follow, see, you wanted to round it to the next two, integer value. So in this case, 2 integer value want to round it. Since these 2 integer values are less than 5, it rounds down to the next nearest, rounds to the number to the nearest 100 value. That means nearest 100 to this one is 200. Okay, and since so you mentioned 2 here. In this case, 5 is there, right? The second decimal, second digit is 5. And above 5, what will happen is it rounds this number to the next nearest 100th value, which is going to be your 300. This is basic school, high school math. 200, 300. Remember this. Okay, this is how the round function works. In the case of round function, like I said, it takes the 2 arguments. It takes the 2 arguments, and the first one is the number to be. You need to specify the number which needs to be rounded, and then the second one is up to the or the number of decimal places that needs to be rounded. Okay. So it is, but only thing is you need to understand the difference between positive and negative values for the decimal places. Okay, in the case of decimal places that needs to be rounded to, right? You can use the positive value, negative value. So now we discussed about that one also. Okay, and the next one is the is numeric. Okay, select. I'm going to use the same query in the interest of time. You want to check programmatically, is this a numeric value or not? If it is a numeric value, it will return true, else it will return false. Each numeric function requires one argument. Okay. Here you're not supposed to specify more than one value. Is a numeric value or not? Yes. If it returns once, that means it's a true. 0 is false. Okay. Yes, it is a true, and it returns 1 here. Okay. And the next one is the power function. And for example, if you take the power of something, select power of 2. Okay, sorry. Power, it requires 2 arguments. In this case, 2 to the power 2. 4, that's it. 2 raised to the power 2, that is what it says. And the count function, for example, I'm going to use the same query here. I'm going to use select count of star. How many of you remember when I say count in DAX, we discussed about the count function, right? So how many number of records are there? If you want to see that, you can use select count of star. Okay, and yes, the next one, moving on with the next set of string-related built-in functions. We will take a look at the string-related built-in function. These are the string-related built-in functions that are available. Left, len, lower, ltrim, nchar, char, convert an ASCII value to a character, and ASCII returns the ASCII code to value of a character. It gives you the numeric value for the ASCII code, okay? And then quote name returns any quotient with delimiters added to make the input string a valid delimited identifier. And replace, see, these are the commonly used functions, which is the one, the replace and replicate. Sometimes, you know, this, but the write, rtrim, and space, string, string split maybe, okay, and ltrim, lower, and len, left, format, and concat ws, and maybe write this one. So these are the functions are more frequently used. The rest of the functions probably you can go and explore it, okay? These are the important functions or more popular function. You take any RDBMS, we'll be using it, okay? So nowadays, the natural language processing is gaining a lot of popularity. You might have heard about this one, the Chat GPT is gaining a lot of popularity because of the, you know, it has been built based on the natural language processing, okay, thing, NLP thing. They use GPT. There is an algorithm called GPT. They train that algorithm. It's gaining popularity. Hence, you know, learning the text-related functions are very much helpful because nowadays we are getting a lot of unstructured data. One of the examples for the unstructured data is text data type. You need to be very clear. You should be very good in the text pre-processing, okay? For example, I just start with the concat. Concat is also one of the commonly used function. Select concat. For example, I have something called test, comma, match v1. All these 3 strings got concatenated. Using concat function, you can concatenate this well. But here, if you see here, all these 3 string got concatenated, but we need the space. We need to leave a space between each word. The one way of doing is, you can use the, you can leave some space followed by each string. Okay. And then you can do it this way. Before and after, you can see this is one way of doing it. The other way of doing is we can use, for example, your text is like this. See here in this case, okay, followed by each word, we have manually left the space. But if they give you an article, in the article, many words will be there. In that case, you cannot go and manually leave space followed by each word. Okay, this is your original data. So in that case, what you do is you can use space. There is a function called space 1, comma, something like that. Okay. So it leaves a space. Test match B1. Again, here between test and match, it left a space, whereas it is not. We have a function called space, comma 1. You can use it like this. So these two are same, but in this case, we did not leave space followed by each, and instead we have mentioned a space 1, space 1. You can write programmatically, you can leave space between each word or each string. And then we have something called concat WS. Now we learned about concat and a space function also. And concat WS, word separator. Okay. In this case, I'm going to say something like hyphen quote, comma, test. In this case, I just I'm going to leave it as it is. So what it does is, in this case, it separates each word, okay, with the hyphen. Test hyphen match hyphen V1, okay. Or if you think you want to leave space here, you can use this way also, okay. This is another way of leaving the space between the text, right? This is pretty much dynamic. Press F5, yes, it is giving the correct output now. And the, okay, next one is if I want to extract only 3 characters from a string, start from the left. From the left side of the string, I just wanted to extract only the 3 characters. Look here, TS. Similarly, right. The right is the opposite. The right side, it will extract the 3 letters. TCH, okay. And then the next one is the lower and upper function. Let's say if I use upper function takes only 1 argument. We want to convert the lower to upper. That is possible. Test match. The same thing is applicable to your lower. Okay, it's the opposite is lower. Your function. You have something called lower built-in function is readily available. Lower function, upper function, and the replace function. Next one is the replace is one of the important function. In the case of text pre-processing, a replace function, the first argument is a string, and then start, comma, length. For example, I'm going to use select, replace the first argument supposed to the your thing. For example, SQL tutorial real, and in this case, I'm going to, instead of T, I put M. Okay, in my text data, there is a problem here. The wordings are not used correctly. Tutorial, okay, it's not tutorial, it is tutorial. There is a spelling mistake. How do I fix this one? T, okay. In this case, replace this m by t. Sorry, it's not pointing correctly. I want to replace this m by t. How do I do that? Using replace function, you can do it. Okay, but you need to specify the string name first, and then the starting position of the play. The string which you need to replace it, m, and then replace the m by t. Okay, you can specify more than one value. So something like mu is there, mu, and you want to replace with some other thing, you can do it that way also. Okay, for example, this all comes under the text pre-processing. Okay, SQL tutorial is correct now, right? So this is how you can fix it in case of any text related issues. And the next one is the substring. We have something called substring. This is also an important function. You take any RDBMS program, SQL query, or you take any languages. Substring is available in almost all the languages. So here, a substring takes the string name and the start thing, and then you need to specify the length. So for example, here some select substring of and I just use tutorial, let's say SQL tutorial. And here I say starting from the first question to 3 letters. It's kind of a left, okay? Left to 3 letters. Now you might be asking, instead of substring, I could have used left function. Then what is the difference? But left to right function, you can extract the values from the left side. You can extract the strings from the right side, but a substring, you can extract it anywhere in the middle also. For example, you want to take the values starting from T, okay? 1, 2, you need to count it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th position, right? Starting from the 6th position, I need to fetch the TUT. Okay, this is not 6th position, 5th position, okay. I just say here, yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th position. Starting from the 5th position, extract the next 3 string, okay. And okay, no. It's correct. Yes, 5th position, TUT. Yes. So these are the string functions which we use it commonly. You can explore other ones. So for example, you have a reverse function, and if you reverse, you want to reverse the string, that is possible. And you have something called sorry. What will happen? It will give me the same output, right? Malayalam only in this case. Even if you reverse it, you'll get the same thing. All right, so the next one is the string, the date functions. The date functions are very much helpful. You take any analytics project, we will be using the date columns. Time-based analytics, we perform it. Hence, it is important to understand the date functions well, okay? And these are the functions are available for the date related thing, okay? Date built-in functions. And select current timestamp. Select current timestamp. There is a built-in called current timestamp. Okay, and the current timestamp, this function returns the current date and time. Okay, in this format, year, month, the date, and this one is your hours. This is your minutes, and this is your seconds, this is your millisecond, this is okay, I just write it here, year, okay, and the dd, and then hour, colon, minute, colon, second, dot millisecond. Okay, up to millisecond you can get it with this function. Okay, the current timestamp. And similarly we have something called sysdate time. Select sysdate time function. So this is our system date function. So here the same thing, year, month, date, hour, minute, second, but here nanosecond, it gives you the nanosecond. It goes one step further, nanosecond. Okay, that is what we can see it here. And then the next one is the date add function. Okay, date add function. How many of you remember date add? As part of time intelligence, I discussed this function. For example, I have something called date add function, and the year, comma, or let's say I specify, okay, let's do one thing, 2022 / and now it is 5th month, and today is 11. I want to extract only the year from this one. Sorry, I want to add year to this column. Okay, this is year 2022. Okay, and if I want to add one to the year alone, you can use this argument in your date add. The first argument is supposed to be your year. Okay, year, comma, 1. That means add 1 to the year part of this date column. So in this case, 2022 became 2023, but the rest of them are same. You can add a value to your, you can increment your year. Okay, and then is there any way I can decrement the year? Yes, that is also possible, -1. Only the year part, if you want to increment or decrement, this is possible. Okay, this is 2021, correct, right? You can either increment the year part alone, you want to perform some kind of manipulations by incrementing the year, or moving forward the year, moving backward the year, that is possible with +1, positive value, negative value. And the same thing you can do it with month also. Okay, you just want to date add month, but you need to have to specify the month instead of year. Just specify the month. Only the month part will get, incremented. For example, it is 5/2022. If you do this 6/22, and this one, you can increment the month. Same way you can decrement month, and then you have something called, for example, you want to see the next month and previous month and the current month sales performance, right? You can use this query. And then the next one is select date diff function. When you type the function name and followed by the time you specify the open parenthesis, you can see the arguments that it accepts. First one is you need to specify the interval. Let's say here the interval is either year or month or something like that. Okay, year, and for example 2022 21 /08 some date. Okay, and followed by this, I just want to find out the, okay, you can let me do one thing. Let's say you are 1987 5/02, and can I specify my sysdate time here? Okay, instead of that, I just say today's date. 36 years. Okay, if you want to calculate date of birth or something like that, you can use this way. Okay, how old you are, right? So it helps us to find out the difference in in the year. Okay, and in this case, what do we say? I just say select date if, right? Okay, in this case, it return. I just put the comment also return the difference between two dates in years. The same way you can find out the difference between the month also. Instead of year, you can use month. Okay. And the next one is I want to return a date alone from its parts. And we have something called the date part function. It is really, really helpful, date parts. And in this case, let's say you have some 2018 year and then 10th month, some days, okay? As date some name you give it. Date part, there is something here, date part. Yeah, date, not parts, date part. Sorry, date from parts. Date from parts. Sorry, I made a mistake. $10.31 and okay, so here I just mentioned the year separately, followed by I mentioned the month, comma 31. You convert this the date format. Okay, this is how we get to it. And then we have something called date part. Sorry, yeah, the date part is an important function. The date part, I'm going to specify the first argument as the interval year and 2022 511. If I want to extract only the year from this column, that is possible with this one. Okay. If you want to extract only the year, you can extract. If you want to extract only the month, the day, everything is possible. Look here, I just put together the data literacy. You can extract, if you want to extract only the year, that is possible. Look here, in this, you can use a get date also. Okay. From the current date, you extract only the year, or you want to extract the quarter alone. Month, you can extract year, quarter, month, day of the year, day, week, day, hour, minute, second, millisecond, microsecond, nanosecond, ISO week. Everything is possible with date part. Date part is very much helpful to extract the values from your given date up to the nanosecond. You can extract the values from the given column, given any column. So these are the functions, you can practice it. Okay, this is very much helpful. Remember it. Okay. The next one is the operators.